Good morning and welcome to Radio Maria Ireland. Shout out to everybody as well on Facebook and YouTube as you've joined us live here on camera as well. Thank you for being with us today and welcome indeed this 15th of December, halfway through December already. Somebody stopped the roundabout here and just put a stall on things. Where has the year just flown past? And month of December, where did that go to as well? I just don't know. I seem to be in another world or something. It's amazing the way the time is travelling past us here. A lovely bright sunny day actually as well today here in Dublin. I do hope the sun is out and there's settled weather wherever you are too. It's nice to have a mild time of year. December traditionally, as my recollection has always and ever been, has always had a mild week or two for the first half. I can remember years ago travelling back from the UK from work to Ireland in December, always that much milder here, of course, on account of the Gulf Stream. So we are blessed indeed with our climate, and our hearts go out to those so sorely tried and afflicted by these natural disasters, the tornadoes there in the US recently. Very, very sad to see towns just torn apart by these violent storms. And of course the question being raised whether or not it's our own doing to a certain extent, the way the climate has changed. Are these natural disasters a recurring thing? But our hearts and our prayers certainly go out to all of those afflicted whose livelihoods have been torn apart, and indeed many lives lost as well. May they all be welcomed into eternal life and be granted mercy and a kindly welcome indeed, and comfort for all those mourning at this time. It is a difficult time of year. I'm always very mindful of that when we pray here for you and with you, that again, if you have lost loved ones, and it's the case, as we know, winter time's a time of greater weakness and vulnerability in terms of health and life, and how many indeed of us have relatives that would have passed away around this time of year. And so rather than it being a time necessarily filled with joy and the coming of Christ and the hope that brings, instead a time of absence and a time of loss. So our hearts go out to you, and indeed our prayers are with you. And I do hope that Radio Maria can be some little source of consolation and friendship for you instead, and companionship with you through these days, which are that much darker. That's why it's nice to see the sun as well, the darkest day of the year coming up next week. That for me is always a turning point. I don't know about you, but once we've passed the 21st of December, I always feel things are on the up now, and the brighter days are ahead. And that gives a cause for hope in its own way too. Don't forget the Advent calendar. I did my little audio piece for that. There's an online Advent calendar at the Irish Bishops Conference.ie, their website. Have a look at that and have a listen. Each day you click on a window and you open, there's a little 2 or 3 minute audio clip in there if you want to listen to it. I did one which I don't know when it will feature, if it will make the grade even. I sent it off to Brenda Drum. She's the communications officer there with the Bishops' Conference and the Irish Bishops there on their behalf. And just a lovely thought, a lovely little resource for people if they want to spend a bit of time, a little click and a listen during the day. It's only a couple of minutes worth, and maybe some thoughts and reflections for you there as well as we journey through Advent towards Christmas, and keeping the focus for us very much on Advent rather than the tinsel and the lights and the Christmas carols. They really are in abeyance, let's say, until the Christmas season proper. And yet you'll hear them, of course. We sneak in the odd one here. I know Dermot likes to play some nice Christmas music, so it's hard to kind of close it off entirely and to keep I suppose the waiting is the idea, isn't it? We're waiting in joyful hope. So they do slip in here as well, even with the best of intentions on Radio Maria. And maybe not altogether a bad thing either. I'm not too hard and fast with these things. Yet it's good to be mindful of the season that's in it and not to celebrate or anticipate perhaps too quickly. And yet tonight there is the Maynooth College Christmas Carol service. Well worth. If you've never been to it, it's a beautiful occasion. I sang at it myself as part of the choir, of course. several years while I was in Maynooth. And of course, being on the seminary choir, we were all marched out and lined up to sing every year. Held in Maynooth College Chapel, which again, if you've never been, is an absolutely stunning chapel where, must be 11,000 priests have passed through over the years, over the 200 plus 225 years since Maynooth was founded, 1795. So 2020, last year, was 225 years of our national seminary. And again, 11,000 priests ordained through the college there. And the chapel, just an absolutely magnificent, artistic and just beautiful place to visit, to see, and so uplifting in faith, with the gorgeous paintings of angels holding the words of the Te Deum and the Benedictus as you go from the door to the front to the sanctuary. The lovely oak timber carved stalls facing each other across the aisle, again akin to monastic life, where we used to sing the office of the church back and forth with one another. The beautiful stained glass windows, the gorgeous paintings of the Stations of the Cross, and all the carvings there, and just a magnificent edifice that just inspires, and the sense of the presence of God certainly there as well. Just a beautiful, beautiful location. And of course, a venue, if you want to think of it in that way, but a very suitable place from which to sing the praises of God in the light of the carol service, which is an Advent service that incorporates readings, a homily, of course, and a blessing, and then the various Christmas carols then to reflect the time that's in it. So it's at 7:30 this evening. The 3 Maynooth College and University choirs will gather. So the College Chapel Choir, which is the seminarians, the choir of the whole university itself, which would be the lay students, many of them music students, of course, too. And they have a beautiful chamber choir, really high caliber polyphony there being sung, just really, really beautiful music. And it's the annual service directed by Dr. John O'Keefe, the Schola Gregoriana, led by Dr. Dorina McCarthy, and Maynooth University Chamber Choir under the direction of Dr. Michael Dawson. So it's been a highlight of the Advent calendar in Ireland since 1970. That's relatively recent. But of course, there'll be a much reduced congregation attending this year, but it will be live streamed on the college website. And Aidan has been in touch with Professor Michael Mullaney, the priest in charge of the seminary and the chapel there, for permission that we can rebroadcast it too. So we'll be featuring it again here on Radio Maria, as we've done the last number of years as well. It's just so beautiful, because again it incorporates, you see, the liturgy, scripture readings, and a little journey through sacred scripture like that. So that is a very appropriate use indeed of a place of worship. So it's not really intended in any way, shape, size or form to be a concert. We see those happening in churches too, and I've spoken about that before. That's, strictly speaking, the church is a house of God and a place of worship, and that music, as it's featured, is intended to be for the glory of God and the worship of God, rather than a performance. If it's a case of performing music, then, well, there's lots of other venues that would be very appropriate and suitable for the performance of music. Whereas a church is consecrated with one purpose in mind, that is the worship of God. And unfortunately, we get a bit confused in this. I see it at times where concerts are held in churches, albeit with very good intent. In fact, in Galway, where we were there on Saturday and Sunday, Saturday evening there was a concert, and it was a charitable event, certainly. And it was somewhat of a takeover of the cathedral. Now, we didn't get to stay and listen and hear, so I don't know what form or shape it took. But it is the case sometimes that this is what churches can be used as venues like that. And it has to, I think the conversation should be had, or at least the discussion should be had, as to the nature of such events. And are they fitting and in keeping with the use and the consecrated nature of our church buildings? And is it appropriate then, even if it is for charitable purposes, again, which is altogether wonderful. But if it's a house of God, again, the question must be asked, can we find another venue that won't, this conflict or this tension? You see, what do you do in that case if when the Blessed Sacrament is reserved there and people are entering and leaving and talking and engaging with one another as if it were a concert hall, and yet it's a house of prayer? See, this is where the difficulty arises. At any rate, this lovely carol service in Maynooth College is ordered towards the worship of God, and it's very beautiful. So do check out the Maynooth College website for the live stream for that. But as I say, we have permission to rebroadcast it too, which we certainly will. So it will be led by Father Michael Mullaney, Reverend Professor Michael Mullaney, who, when announcing this year's event, said, "I'm truly delighted that this year's Christmas carol service can go ahead with a small in-person audience. I extend an invitation to everyone who can join us online and enjoy hymns sung by our 3 talented choirs for this beautiful and moving celebration of the eternal message of Christmas." And it'll be broadcast by Kairos, that's the television arm, I suppose. It's Divine Word Missionaries. They're based there in Maynooth as well, and they're very good at connecting in, and it'll also be on Shalom TV. They're a marvellous Catholic radio station as well. We're great friends with them, and indeed have featured there as well. So last year, because of the restrictions, the carol service did not have a live audience in the college chapel, but it was watched by 17,000 people online. Absolutely wonderful to hear that. Great altogether. So this is part of our Christmas journey, and these, you may have certainly had carol services in your own parishes maybe in the past. I just wonder how that will transpire this year with restrictions and so on. But it's a lovely, lovely way indeed to celebrate Christmas. So very good. Keep an ear out for Radio Maria here. We'll feature that certainly too. Now, just a big shout out and a big thank you to Father Peter Rabbit, the administrator in Galway, in the cathedral there. Thanks to Father John Gerard Acton as well, and all the wonderful staff there. I must say they have a lovely team of very kind and well-disposed volunteers who help with all of the work of a cathedral. Is quite an onerous task and response. There's so much going on in any cathedral at any given time, and is right in the heart of Galway City. So it's a busy, busy, busy spot. So we're very grateful. It can be a bit of an imposition when somebody arrives in from outside, something like Radio Maria, and it can be like, we have enough going on, we just don't need this right now. I could certainly understand that, but no, very kindly received and very kindly welcomed. And I wasn't expecting to meet Bishop Brendan Kelly either, and it was just lovely to meet and to celebrate Holy Mass with him on Sunday morning, and he gave a nice kind endorsement to the work of Radio Maria. We're very, very grateful to Bishop Brendan, and indeed to Father Peter and Father John Gerard, who were very kind to us. And met some lovely, lovely people. Anne was there, Anne Chambers, and Anne, another lady whose surname I must ask Ruth to remind me again. Just lovely people of faith. Carla was there as well. Breach was another lady who turned up as a listener and just came along to help out. And a lovely man from Nazareth was there too, delighted to meet us. And familiar, of course, that Radio Maria has only recently this year started in Nazareth. And I was telling him how we were so blessed indeed to be able to share the Rosary from Nazareth as part of our journey of faith. That's going to continue next year, by the way, and I think it's a great initiative and a great idea that we connect in with all these beautiful Marian shrines in the course of the year, something like once a month or when the feast days come around, like Our Lady of Guadalupe last Sunday. Thanks to Andrew for just doing the voiceover on the Rosary from Guadalupe with the World Family of Radio Maria, and connecting then with all the other English-speaking radios. And every radio then featuring this Rosary from these beautiful shrines. So Nazareth certainly, Guadalupe, Lourdes, I think we came from Lourdes and Fatima and Medjugorje. What's the one in Sicily? Pompeii and Kibeho in Africa. All these just massive, massive shrines of Our Lady. It seems to me so appropriate that we would connect in with all of these. So that was last Sunday now as well, and that came here. We would connect in from here, of course, to Guadalupe. But such indeed is the blessing of the radio, to connect in and share then with all of these great movements. So Mike was the name. I think is it Raj? No. Majd, I think, was his name. A lovely man from Nazareth, inviting us over, of course, to the Holy Land. The place is certainly on the top of my list to, please God, pay a visit. And he is studying here, and I think is returning home to Israel and coming back and going to study in Dublin. So he's hoping to visit the studio here and come along and maybe share with us, indeed, because he says the number of Christians there is quite small relatively in the country, that there are more Jews obviously and Muslims, and so it's not an easy task to live the faith there. So looking forward to have him come and visit and share with us. So very pleased with the lovely hospitality we received. A shout out to Chris, who very kindly accommodated us as well in Galway on Saturday night and catered for us there. We're very, very grateful. And all the lovely people we met there. Many indeed who were already avid listeners. Eileen Joyce came over to say hello. Eileen is regularly in touch with us here on the radio, and it was lovely to meet you, Eileen, and great to chat with you after, as indeed we met several others too, and a number of people who hadn't heard of Radio Maria. I'm just delighted. They picked up a calendar. We brought some calendars along, snapped up, of course, and it was just lovely to be able to do that, to get the word out. I must have a chat with Ruth, actually. Maybe she'll tell you a little bit later for join the team. I think the calendars have been just gobbled up at this stage, and they've been sent out to all the Irish addresses now. I think the international ones were maybe sent out yesterday or going out today, but the Irish ones went out very quickly and arrived very quickly as well. And we've had absolutely loads and loads and loads of lovely, lovely, kind messages. Delighted to receive our calendar, and I do hope it will occupy a worthy place in your home and be a lovely religious reminder to you. You can see the way we've set it out. It's organised liturgically so that you'll know where you are in the church's liturgical year and what saints' days are coming up, and with big enough little spaces for each day that you can jot down a note or two. I don't know, an appointment with the doctor, you know, a flight to meet at the airport or whatever. Do you know the way you put little notes down on a calendar to somebody's coming to visit, this kind of thing? I like that idea myself, where you can just at a glance look up on the wall and see what's happening this month or what am I to anticipate. And just, I do hope the holy pictures and the nice little texts we put in there by way of prayer or invocation will be a reminder to you as well. And then, of course, our small little hope too is that it might also be a little instrument to promote Radio Maria itself, and maybe those who will see it will be reminded, look, there is a lovely Catholic radio station in this country. It's available for you. It's a service that we make available. We're at your service, is the way I was putting it on Sunday in Galway. And if we can help and support and build you up in your faith, we're very glad to be able to do so. So it's a great time of year, and it's just a lovely little gesture that we can do. We found it worked so well last year. We printed 3,000 last year, and this year we've printed 5,000. So like I say, I must chat with Ruth. I haven't had a chance to speak with her yet today. Mary Houghton is visiting. Mary came up from Waterford today to say hello and just spend a few hours here and get to see and know and share with us. Thanks, Mary, for that. Great fan and supporter of the radio. Mary works as a midwife, I think it is, or certainly in maternity care, which is a lovely vocation. And I should be able to join with Mary Fitzpatrick for the hour of prayer there at 12:30, the Immaculate Heart of Mary prayer group there. So looking forward to all of that, and again to thank you for the lovely kind feedback that's really pouring into us. So many of us so glad to receive the lovely holy calendar, and I hope it's it's a little exceptional or unusual or different in its own way, that it's pretty unashamedly Catholic and devotional in its outlook. Thank you for that. And I'm wondering, and maybe kind of secretly hoping, that we might have to do a little rerun or a print of a few more if the demand is there. And if it is you haven't received one, if it is that you aren't, if you're in Ireland, certainly in the I think did all the Northern Ireland ones go as well? There might be, again, I haven't spoken to Ruth to get the full picture, she'll tell you. But if it is you haven't received a calendar, or you'd like to maybe get a second one or a third one maybe to give away, do get in touch with us and let us know. Now, you know all the contact details. I'll give them to you all again. 089 467 2000 is the text and WhatsApp number. 089 467 2000. Put a +353 in front of that, as always, if you're in the north or outside of Ireland altogether. +353 89 467 2000. If we don't have your name and address on our database, please do give us your permission to place it there, and we will happily send you out one of our beautiful religious calendars for 2022. And if you'd like a second one or a third one to give away, again, we're happy to put them in the post to you. And thanks indeed to all who very kindly make a little donation towards the cost of that. And thanks indeed to the very kind listener who offered to subsidise the printing of the calendars. That was a great help to us this year, because, as you can imagine, it's not a cheap enterprise. And the postage, don't be talking about the postage. When you go to post your Christmas cards, take a deep breath. Postal costs have just gone off the charts, really. It's very expensive now to send stuff out by post. And you know, you'd be saying to yourself, surely there's a massive increase in the volume of things travelling by post nowadays. You might even be expecting a reduction in postal charges because of the volume. So I don't know what's now. I suppose fuel prices have gone up and all these other things, so can't moan or give out too much. But at the same time, when you're sending out a lot of post, yeah, it's kind of sharp intake of breath. It hurts a little bit. Do you know, I was going through, actually, just a little statistic for you, going through just one little section of the thank you letters that we send out, the ones that come in by post. I think in the course of the year we've sent out about 1,600 thank you letters and acknowledgements. I think that's the figure there. At least they're the number of Word documents in the folder of record of the thanks that we've sent out. That's a huge number. I just so moved by that. It just means that so many of you are so kind to us and getting in touch with us and helping us and encouraging us with your kind. We get lovely mass cards people send in, and greetings and prayers and beautiful Christmas cards. And as I was coming up the stairs a while ago, Martina had a big bundle in her arms, both arms full of post that had just come today. So it's very, very encouraging. It really does give us a great boost. We're very grateful. So listening to your, say, a Corpus 12, you get the latest update on that as well. And it's nice to have Mary back in the studio. Mary laid up there with her family, struck down by COVID, but thank God all are well again. All are well again. And this is the good news, if I can just allow a little space for this. That with the virus indeed and the infections that are seem to be recurring, indeed sadly there are those who are hospitalised. We pray and hope indeed all will be delivered of it. But again, so many are recovering, and there's wonderful protocols, if you've been listening to Patricia, in place for a healthy recovery from the virus too. Again, keep taking it as winter time, your vitamin C, your vitamin D, zinc is that the other one, and whatever else, a healthy diet, plenty of exercise insofar as you're able, and enough sleep. All of these things just to build a very healthy and strong immune system. And no doubt Mary's family, she's feeding them all well and looking after them all well, and they all came through very well without any major difficulty. Thanks be to God. And we're hearing stories like that all the while of people making good recoveries from it. So please don't allow yourself to be over anxious or overly concerned to the point that it wears you down or causes you that sort of anxiety. Don't let that happen at all. Don't let that happen. There's marvellous treatment and marvellous care available to any who are afflicted by this or any other winter illness that may be there. So I think to me, and for me, one of the very lovely, important lessons is keep working on our immune system, keep healthy in terms of our diet and our exercise, and sleep. The simple things which are free, don't cost nothing, don't cost anything. And like I say, I think Patricia's been very good to keep us well informed on some of those areas too. So be mindful of all of that as hopeful and helpful. And you know what, if I may add it in too, and I will do, our spiritual lives. Having a healthy spiritual life goes a long way, in fact, too, towards peace of mind and reassurance and strength and comfort and hope, which is where I started a little while ago, to keep strong in the faith. Keep up those prayers, indeed. Share with us here on Radio Maria. Have us on there in the background for the Rosary, the Divine Office, the Holy Mass, if it is you're not able otherwise to get to Mass. And again, all the lovely, gentle, affirming voices that join us on the microphone throughout the day. Again, my hope is, and I know it is the case, because many of you have said so, that it's a great voice of support, of fellowship, of friendship, and of comfort. And like I say, assurance that we all need, that little voice of hope all the while. So shall I pause for a little piece of music? Jesus is looking after me at the mixing desk here. And again, if you would like to get in touch, please do write, please do email, please do phone. The phone number is 014-123-456. How easy is that? Plus 353 again from the north or outside of Ireland. 14123-456. Email us info@radiomaria.ie. It's very simple. And by all means do drop a comment here on Facebook and on YouTube Live as well. And we'll look those up too. So the song from Red Mountain Church, I believe, Come Thou Expectant Jesus. That's the song Aidan has texted me here, Jesus, so I hope that's all good to go. So too, please get in touch with us. Thanks for your company, and back very shortly after this music break.
Sins release us, let us find our are so blessed to know about the great gift that is Radio Maria and to be able to tune in for our daily prayer or favourite shows, or to send in our intentions for the whole Radio Maria Ireland community to pray for. There are still so many people who haven't yet discovered this gift. Why don't you call a friend or family member today and let them know about Radio Maria?
Welcome back. Thanks for that, Jesus. Good to have your company this morning, and welcome indeed. If you're listening back to a repeat or a podcast, by all means do connect in with us and share with us. So shout out to Janine, who's listening in from the east coast of the United States this morning, very early in the morning indeed too. You're very welcome. Thanks indeed to all who are connecting in and joining with us here as well. Now a couple of messages that did come in just to follow through on, if I may. Mary reminded us of this evening, and I do hope there will be penitential services, or at least confessions that are made available in churches in the coming week leading up to Christmas. Do please put it as a priority on your list of things to do, your shopping list for Christmas, to get to the Lord in confession to be healed. So Father Paul Glennon, from whom we had Mass this morning, of course, in Walkinstown, next door to us here. He's the new parish priest of Walkinstown and a great supporter of the radio here. We see him often, and lovely to have him join with us. He is leading a penitential service with confession tomorrow, Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. in Walkinstown Church, just off the Walkinstown Road. And if you're familiar with that, it's actually quite a huge church. I'm sure there's ample well, I know there is room for distancing and everything else there. Met a lady yesterday actually who was duly impressed. She said she had quite a fear of returning back to church again after all the lockdowns and everything, but she had come for the funeral that I was doing yesterday, and said she was very impressed to see all the safeguards in place by way of sanitising and distancing and signage and everything else, that she hadn't been to the church for some time. So encouraged to maybe tentatively make her way back to regular attendance in the church too. So that's lovely to hear that. So come back to God for Christmas, Father Paul is saying, is the theme, and she would appreciate it if it could be advertised. So certainly putting a shout out for that. 7 p.m. this evening in Walkinstown Church, if you're in and around this side of Dublin, for the penitential service. If there's any other such services around the country and you'd like me to give them a shout out, we can fit them in here, we'd gladly do so. You know, it's one of my big pet subjects is getting people to confession, certainly. Dermot was in touch as well. Now, these are some of the really difficult moral questions that arise all the while, and glad to receive our calendar. Thanks for that, Dermot. But he's saying there's a debate ongoing on the end of life bill. We know that euthanasia and that question of assisted dying, they call it too, is a very pertinent topic and something that's being debated at this time. And the hope is that this is something that will be given sufficient time and space to be able to be discussed, because the dangers that Dermot points out there is that where it's been introduced in places like Holland and Switzerland, it's a slippery slope. We've seen this time and time again. Morally, they bring it in within certain restrictions, and then it just seems to get wider and wider. And I remember it was quite a difficult encounter. I met a lady in Lourdes some years ago, and she came to see me. She waited. I don't know how come maybe she'd been to one of the masses. She'd heard me preach, I think, or something like that. And it was towards the last day of our pilgrimage to Lourdes. I might have mentioned this story before. She wasn't part of our group. She was living in Lourdes, an English lady married to a Frenchman. And she came and she deliberately wanted to come and speak to me. And everybody was gone, and we sat and chatted. She said her husband was very seriously ill. He had some very difficult illness and was determined to take his own life, again by this means of assisted suicide. And her heart was broken, just torn apart with it. And there was very little I was able to do at the time, and I was wondering whether any of the local priests in Lourdes would have been able to call. And she said, look, here in France, they just do things so differently. This is something they wouldn't be. This was a few years ago now. They just wouldn't. It just wouldn't work. And said I would have gone along to visit him myself if he would have been open to it. Except I think we were leaving that day, or the next day there was something that there just wasn't the opportunity to do it. And the poor woman, her heart was broken. Here he was determined on this path. And we're left with so many questions in this area. How is it that someone can get to that point? Surely, again, with the right support, is it not like mothers and their unborn children, that with the right support and care, that the gift of new life can be welcomed? And with the right support and care and companionship, even terrible suffering like that can be alleviated, and the value of it then can be seen in terms of faith. That suffering has a tremendous value. Carrying the cross, there's hope there. But again, without the right support and companionship and help, people can get themselves to a place where they feel that this is the only way to. And it's just so deeply upsetting and deeply, deeply tragic. So Dermot is right to raise this point, and that we should value the sanctity of human life from the very first moment of conception until natural death, and to care for that life right up to the very end and support. The beautiful funeral I was doing yesterday, my good friend Mary Dolan, whom I've known for many years, actually goes back to my first time coming to Dublin and working here on the cause for the canonisation of Frank Duff. The accommodation wasn't readily available for me with the Legion, so Mary was working with the Legion of Mary in the hostel for the homeless, the Regina Coeli Hostel, and because she was running a bed and breakfast as well, and a great woman of hospitality, she was asked would she put me up for a little while till I got sorted. And I did eventually get to stay with the Carmelites, but stayed with Mary for a little while, and we really ate it off, and it owned a deep faith. But here she was it 90 or 91, and just the last number of months, the last few years, she has been quite frail and in need of round-the-clock care. And again, just always lovely to visit when I could. I would have indeed loved to visit so much more often. But the family were exceptional, really, as every good family is, giving of their time, taking turns and attending to the needs of their mother and grandmother, and getting the right home help to come in, of course, too. I think, is there any family that doesn't somehow have to go through that? But just the care and respect she received, and the sacraments that she received regularly too. And because of that, I had the great privilege then last Wednesday, so just a week ago, the Feast of the Immaculate Conception, to bring Mary Holy Communion, to grant her absolution and the apostolic pardon, which is the full remission of punishment due to sin that the Church allows at the closeness to death, and Holy Communion and anointing of the sick. So the full three sacraments of healing there. And on that feast day of Our Blessed Lady, the Immaculate Conception, it just, that was providential. Here was this lady, the wonderful woman who lived a great life of faith, had tremendous love for her family. I spoke of these things yesterday at the funeral mass too. There was a huge gathering there. I was very impressed because it's such a big church. The church was well able to take the numbers. Marvellous gathering, very impressive. And the family all participated in the funeral and spoke so well and so highly. And in fact, it was lovely on the sanctuary. There was an image of the Divine Mercy, which Mary, as part of the local adoration committee, they had gathered together to donate to the church and leave to the church. And that was their central place there on the sanctuary too. So it really was one of those beautiful funerals that of deep faith. And you see, when you contrast that then with this idea of assisted suicide, it just seems so wrong, and just the antithesis of what our faith teaches us, flying in the face of God's mercy. And yes, I suppose the great challenge that falls upon us to minister to the sick and the dying and to comfort them. This is a gospel command. This is what the Lord himself demands of us. When I was sick, you cared for me. In prison, you came to see me. This is the test. This is the judgment day. And so for Mary, who did such lovely work with the Regina Coeli Hostel, And Brian, her son, spoke about it very well, did much better, I thought, actually, than I did myself in my few little references to the Legion. Again, insofar as you did it to one of these. So this, for us, certainly as believers and as followers of Christ, every human life, from the very first moment to its natural end, here is our task, to care for that life, to support, to uphold, to nurture, to be there. And again, the beautiful memories now, this family, bereaved indeed as they are, that they will share, having given of themselves so generously and caring for their dear mum. All of these things onwards and into the future are great blessings and great assurances and great sources of comfort to them. Whereas this notion of taking the life before time, it just, how does that, how can that make any sense? It's always making our gods of ourselves, again, life in the womb, destroying that life, being sort of judge over that. And why? Again, you're just left with so many questions. So whatever we can to play our part in holding fast to the dignity of the human person, the sanctity of every human life, especially the weak, the vulnerable, the elderly, the unborn. I mean, which of us, it seems a bit crazy, doesn't it? Which of us here isn't, with God's help, going to grow old and be frail and be in need of support and health support and the strength and comfort and companionship of friends? There's no one of us can escape this inevitability. So turkeys voting for Christmas comes to mind. Somebody mentioned that recently. Why would a turkey vote for Christmas if it is that, turkey is going to be the main dinner for the day? Why would we bring about our own self-destruction? And you can hear certainly all the compassionate arguments coming through, but the compassion, it seems to me, is misdirected. The real way to direct is caring, and yes, it's challenging, but caring for the sick and the vulnerable. Don't ever let them get to this place where they think they're no longer needed, or their lives are worthless, or wouldn't it be better to end it all? That's everyone, I suppose, goes through those kind of dark moments in that. But let this not be what the solution we offer. Surely, again, like the destruction of life in the womb, we can offer far better than this. We're worth much more than this. Surely we can do better than this idea of seeking to take life. It's a very important aspect of our moral teaching. So let us never succumb to that, and whatever we can do to contribute positively to this culture of life that we're all the while praying for here and seeking to build up and speak about. And we'll speak about it again and just share more with you on it and see what's so important about this teaching, because it matters to us all. It affects us all. And our faith just adds so much more light and meaning to all of this, and hope. Hope is the theme for all of this too. Good. Thank you, Dermot, for that text, and it's a very important conversation to have, and we'll certainly continue to have it too. Our time has come to an end here on Radio Maria. Just thank you very much for your company, and as always, lovely to have you with us here visually too. Again, do please react, do comment, do exchange, do interact with us by way of your messages as well. So thanks to Jesus at the mixing desk. We're going to pause now and have our Angelus Bells and midday prayer, and we'll return very shortly to pray with you.